Welcome to the Nashville Chapter of the National Association of Black Journalists, Crucial Conversations. I'm Sandra Long Weaver. I'm a founding member of the National Association of Black Journalists, and I am also a active member of the Nashville Chapter. Today, our guest is Dwight Lewis, who is also a member of our chapter and the author of 2 books, including Temple's Tiger Bells, an illustrated history of women who outran the world. He wrote for the Nashville Tennessean for 40 years, and when he retired in 2011, he was had been editorial page editor for 3 years. Welcome, Dwight, to our conversation today.
Thank you very much.
All right, and what we want to talk about is this moment in time. Right now, we're seeing a lot of unrest throughout the country following the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis. There have been protests almost every day since the day he was murdered. And we won't go into the detail of that. I wanted to focus more on a column that you actually wrote the day before that occurred, calling for support of erecting a statue of Ida B. Wells, who has a long Tennessee history. And tell us a little bit about who she was, and then we'll talk about why this moment is important to think about erecting a statue in her honor.
Okay. Ida B. Wells grew up in Holly Springs, Mississippi. But she ended up she went to Memphis and became a school teacher, as well as editor and co-owner of a newspaper there, the Headlight and Free Speech. And one of the things she did, she believed in free expression. And she wrote a lot about lynching, the lynching of black men, of black people. And she wrote about other injustices. She was fired from a job as a school teacher because she criticized the inadequate buildings that black students had to try to learn in. But when she, in 1892, she was out of town, and she had written an editorial about criticizing lynching. But her newspaper office was burned down, and she was told, word was sent to her that if she returned to Memphis, that she would be killed.
Oh,
and
wow.
So she never returned to Memphis.
And she had written about lynching because I think 3 of her friends
and just a lot of different people. Blacks were being lynched there, not only in Memphis, in other places. And one of the people who, the editor of the Memphis Commercial Appeal, talked about blacks, and that blacks could not ever be anything, and talked about some of the men. He had one story, he had one editorial that a 7-year-old girl was raped by some black men. Turned out the young lady was not 7, she was 17, and she had gone to this man's house on her own.
Wow. So yeah, it's so in your column, I think you talk about this is the time to look at erecting a statue in her honor. And there are no statues of black women that have been erected to honor at this point. No,
and Sandra, this was not the first time I had written this. I wrote a piece. I guess the first time I wrote about Ida B. Wells was in the early 1970s or 1970s, during Black History Month. But in 1997, August 7th, 1997, I wrote a column, and it was headlined, "Grace the Capitol with the likeness of a true heroine." 1997.
Wow.
And
okay.
Nothing had, and I think the lead said, "Come on, Tennessee, it's time for you to honor one of your heroines." And Ida B. Wells, whose courage would rival not only that of any other Tennessean, but also of many other Americans. And nothing had been done.
Right. So that's
from that time on.
years ago. And
yes.
and
but
now,
what happened in early May, I think it was early May, the Pulitzer Board awarded Ida B. Wells a special citation. And the Pulitzer Prize, as you know, is the highest prize that can be given to a print journalist.
Exactly.
And she died in 1931, but the Pulitzer Board felt that she deserved it for the work that she did, for her writings and her speaking out. And so I said, well, since nothing has been done, maybe Tennesseans need a refresher. And that's why I wrote the column ran May 24th in the Tennessean.
And since then, with the murder of George Floyd and the protests, there's also been a push to not get rid of, but move Confederate statues out of the public eye. And in some cities, they've been toppled over. In other cities, officials have actually made the move to remove them. So would Ida B. Wells be a great candidate to put in the Tennessee State House and remove the bust of Forrest, who's there?
It surely would. And let me point out that in 1999, there's a Nashville attorney named Louis Laska, who also wrote that Ida B. Wells, the statue should be placed there. And one of the things he said too, and I missed it, is that when I wrote my last column, is that Edward Cormack, who has a statue in the Capitol, on the grounds of the Capitol, and his statue was, I think, demolished or broken when some of the protests, the first series of the protests here in Nashville following George Floyd's death. But Cormack was the editor of the Commercial Appeal, who wrote the stories about lynching. He was pro-lynching, anti-black, and he has had a statue on the grounds of the state capitol. Why should he have a statue there and not Ida B. Wells?
Oh, absolutely. I agree. So what is it that we can do to build the ground?
Well, one of the things the students, some of the people who are protesting now, marching, I think they've gone to call, they want the plaza to be named at the state capitol to be named the Ida B. Wells Plaza.
Okay.
And that would be fitting, as well as a statue inside the Capitol. But I just think we have to try to get people to put word out there that, some people, too many of us, and I'm included in this, I don't know everything. Too many of us don't know our history.
Right.
Yeah. The Reverend Tex Thomas, when I wrote the article back in '97, one of the things he said was, it was not that article, but I wrote another article, and he was saying that when he was growing up in Texas, he thought all Africans ran around half naked and with a bone in their hair and their hair and teeth, because that's what he saw on television.
Wow.
But we as African Americans, we need to know our history. We need to read and find out who, because some people will tell you, like Edward Cormack, say blacks haven't done anything, they haven't contributed anything to society. So we need to know our history so we'll know about people like Ida B. Wells.
Right. Oh, I agree. And I think you writing your column and calling more attention to it, and especially after, yes, the Pulitzer Board did make an award in her honor, which was fabulous. And hopefully we'll hear about more people being honored in that way, because she's made a huge difference. And as you know, the National Association of Black Journalists has an award named after her that's given out annually as well. So
sure. And I think the University of Kansas, Samuel Adams, the late Samuel Adams, he helped with that award also.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah. So I appreciate you writing about it. I think this is the moment. And thank you for making us aware of this history. And
well, may I say this, that if we don't tell our story, who will?
Exactly. And that's what we need to do more of, is tell our story. And I think that's part of what this Black Lives Matter movement is also doing. It's telling the story. There are too many people saying, oh, I didn't realize that. And now the video showing George Floyd being murdered, Rashard Brooks also being shot in the back, and more showing black men who are being killed. People are finally believing that African Americans are treated unjustly by police, and there does need to be some reform made. So we'll see. But at the same time, I think it's important to continue this conversation about honoring a Black woman who was a pioneer, who was making a difference at the turn of the century, at the turn of the 20th century, and lived on into the 20th century and was still writing. So, you know, we have to get the word out there and do more about it. So maybe.
Yes, and the courage that she had. And I'm so proud of what you do and what NABJ is doing to help get the word out.
Yeah, so, and we will continue. So thank you for being a part of our crucial conversations today, and we'll continue these crucial conversations. Be aware, look for more information, more ideas on how we can begin to move on getting a statue erected in her name, and perhaps removing the statues of racist people from the State House and from the public view, and putting them in a place where they can still be seen, but not in the public view every day. So thank you, Dwight. I appreciate it. And I will see you the next time.
All right. Thank you very much.